Hi, Richard.
Hello. Hello.
So nice to speak to you, even though we are in different places and can't overcome frontiers at present. Um, for everybody who's watching right now, I'm Kirsten Buchholzer. I'm the president of the Tarot Association, and I'm going to talk to Richard Abbot. Richard Abbot is a tarot and numerology expert from Britain. He lives in the north of London, or northerly of London, better to say. And I put his homepage into the comments. You can look at his homepage whenever you want to. He has a great newsletter you really need to have, so sign up for it. And today we're going to talk about numerology and tarot, obviously. I'm constantly reading Richard's newsletter. It's very uplifting and also challenging at times, I find. And Richard has a lot to say about this time we are living in, and he can demonstrate this via numerology. And Richard, before we start, do you want to say anything else about you before I start? Or shall we just go into medias res?
Well, let's do it. Let's just jump straight in, Kirsten. Let's just jump straight in.
Okay. For everybody who's watching, I can see some people are watching already. Hi, everybody. If you have questions for Richard, just put them into the comments. I'm going to try and moderate a bit while we are talking. Or if we're finished, we can still answer questions if you want to. Okay, Richard. So we said we're going to talk about the mysteries of the High Priestess regarding the times we're living in, and why are we going to do this?
Okay, so my approach to numerology is that we don't want to be doing calculations and adding things up and coming up with really complicated kind of highfalutin kind of ideas that this adds to this and this adds to this and oh my god, it's the end of the world kind of thing. You can do that sometimes, it's a bit of fun, but I don't really want to do that today. It's not really my approach. My approach is all about it's almost like numerology gives us a clue as to something that's hidden in plain sight. That's the way I want to think about it. So, as far as I'm concerned, we are now all of us are ruled by the number 2. And the number 2 is, by most tarot decks agreement, is the High Priestess. Now, why are we all ruled by the number 2 and by the High Priestess? Because we're in the year 2000 and something. So we were all born, well, probably most of the people listening to this or watching this were born in 1972. I know I look older, but it's been a hard life. 19, whatever. But now we're in 2000 and something. So we're now all in the vibration of the 2. All of us. This is a very big picture thing at first. So it's hard to kind of get our heads around it. But we were born in the 1, the vibration of the magician, and we now live in the vibration of the High Priestess. So the obvious thing immediately we can say about this is that we've moved from the time of the masculine, which I'm not necessarily interpreting as male, but the masculine of the magician, to the feminine of the High Priestess. Mm-hmm. That's the biggest thing that has happened, is happening, is ongoing. We're now in the age of the feminine. So you can take this in all sorts of ways. But certainly the energy now is one of flow and greater softness, rather than the magician energy, which was much more directed to the point. Now, some people will say, and it's pretty obvious to see, hang on a minute, if we're in the time of the feminine, what the hell have we got people like Trump going on for? Because, of course, we're in the cusp time. Anybody that knows their astrology knows that the first few degrees of a sign are cusp of the sign. So it's kind of a little bit of the sign and a little bit of the previous sign. So we're in the time of the High Priestess, but we're only just in the time of the High Priestess. So there's a lot of magician energy still rolling around the world. And this is part of where we are. You've got a confusion. You've got a mixture between what is the right approach to life. Is it the magician approach or is it the High Priestess approach? We're in the two, so the High Priestess is the coming energy, but of course, only 20 years into it, we are still having the hangover influence of the magician. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes, though if I think further back, this would mean that since the medieval ages, we have been in the energy of the magician. So we wouldn't be counting like 12th century, 14th century, 19th century, but we would count 1, 1, 1, 1, 1.
Well, so since 1000 AD to 1999 AD, we were in the rulership of the magician. We were in the rulership of the one, and it's very top line. You know, it's very abstract. So it's not necessarily personal. Because it's big picture stuff. But obviously those 1,000 years, at least those 1,000 years, were heavily influenced by that strong, masculine, direct, active energy. That's been the rulership of the world. We've had leaders, and then you swap them out for another leader. Whether the leaders are any good or not, whether the magicians are any good or not, isn't the point. We've had that active masculinity ruling things. Now, it is seeding, it is moving away to a greater femininity. But this is just the top line. There's more to say. Okay. So that's like the background. That's the season that we're in. We're in the season of the two. So really, the coming energy, the increasing every day, is the feminine energy.
So the first. The centuries under the influence of the magician have been like doing stuff, working with the head, it's mercurial, quick. And now since 2000, we move into an energy which is softer, you said, but intuitive, more oracly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All things High Priestess like is where we now live. But of course, you know, we don't have to be blind to the situation of the world. It's easy to look at the world and say, "Oh, this is not. It doesn't look much like this. It doesn't look much softer. It doesn't look much more feminine." But you know, that's just the headline. That's the hangover of the past. All the systems we have, for example, in our society, pretty much all our systems in our societies are magician-based systems. So we're trying to solve High Priestess type problems with magician type systems. That won't work.
What is a High Priestess type problem?
Well, for example, the magician, being the number one, is all about here is a problem, here is a solution. Bang. One problem, one solution, bang, fixed, end of.
Mm-hmm. Quick and dirty.
But, yeah. And sometimes effective and sometimes not very effective. But the point is that people would look for one solution and then swap it out for another solution. Mm-hmm. In the High Priestess, and we won't go all quantum about this because that will be way too much. But quantum physics talks about how everything is kind of like a particle and a wave. In other words, something is more than one thing. So what we're living in now is the age where one answer will not do. We live in a time where actually the answer is yes and the answer is no. Now this is, it's getting a bit abstract, but this is the top line. So we live at a time now where it's not as simple as saying, here's the problem, here's the solution, bang. It's more nuanced than that.
So would you say this talk about fake news and alternative realities has to do with this?
Well, absolutely. I mean, fake news is a prime example of the two vibration, because in all fake news, there's a little bit of truth. That's why it gains traction. If it was completely nonsensical and didn't have any basis in reality, then it would be rejected. But fake news takes hold because it has a little bit of the truth in it.
Mm-hmm.
Conspiracy theories, which let's not discuss, but whether people agree with them or not, the point is that they often have more than a grain of truth in them. But then people, maybe go overboard and start talking about that it's too much of a conspiracy. You get the point. It's not, the answers are not that simple. The answers to things are, well, yeah, it's that, but yeah, but hang on a minute, it's also that. Well, yeah, he's got a point, but oh, yes, no, yes, no.
And the number 2 is also, I'm not so good with numerology, but isn't the number 2 also about doubting?
2 is very much about doubting because of that duality. One hasn't got a duality. One is just interested in going from the start to the finish in the fastest possible time, end of story. 2 is all about doubts. 2 is the two sides of a coin. 2 is, well, yeah, it is like that, but oh no, it's not like that. Oh, what should we do? Mm-hmm. And so therefore, one of the aspects of the 2 is confusion. It's lack of clarity. One brings certainty, even if the certainty is bad, you know what it is. But 2, no certainty, uncertainty, confusion. So, and this has been the story for 20 years now. People seek certainty, but in the time of the High Priestess, you're not going to find it because things are not that clear cut. And
it's the High Priestess, coming back to tarot, is linked to the moon. She's sitting on the new moon, basically. So this also means we have to live life in waves. It's fluctuating. There's no clear vibrating sunlight as with a magician.
Excellent. Exactly it. The sun for the magician is a clear, direct light. The moon is not a light, really. The moon is a reflected light. It reflects from the sun.
Yeah.
So, and of course, also with the High Priestess, you've got the pillars and you've got the veil. So always with the High Priestess and the number 2, you've got things to do with secrets and lies and things hidden. And that's definitely one of the things of our time where there is this suspicion and maybe reality that many things are not as they seem to be.
Deep.
Yeah, it can get a bit deep, but that's the top line of kind of, so it sets the scene of the uncertainty that we kind of all walk around in now. Mm-hmm. Now, if I can take it to the next card, can I do that?
Yeah, just one more question.
Sorry, go on.
So we're talking about the 2 in our times. Perhaps this is leading to the next card. Why is it so happening now in 2020 with the 2?
Right. So that's the next card, because it's happening in 2020. Because what is 2020? It is 2020. Mm-hmm. What is card number 20? Big reveal. Judgment.
Yes.
So 2020, from a numerology point of view, and I wrote about this 9 years ago, first of all 9 years ago and continually since, 2020 from a numerology point of view was always going to be massive. It was always going to be huge. Because you've got the repetition of an energy for a start. You've got the judgment twice, got 2020. Judgment is a massive card anyway. Anybody that knows anything about tarot knows that whenever that comes up in a spread, that's big stuff. That's not small fry things. I always think of judgment in terms of it's a higher version, a bigger version of justice. Justice is what humans do to try to decide things. Judgment is what inverted commas, God does in order to decide things. God, in inverted commas. So judgment always brings a situation where there isn't really much you can do about it. It is like, there we go, bang, this is it. Now, last time we had a big card in this kind of way was 2016. So in 2016, that was ruled by the High Priestess for the 2 and the Tower for 16. And most of us will remember what happened in 2016. So 2016 was always going to be big. Well, a lot of people's preconceptions and ideas and views about the world kind of, well, they didn't come crumbling down. They were destroyed in an instant. And the two, well, let me say 2 words about that. We'll say the Brexit word and we'll say the Trump word.
Okay, sorry, because I tried to remember, didn't remember.
It's a good sign that you can't remember. You must have healed that. You must have gone beyond that now.
I'm sorry.
No, that's good. I like it. But 2016, for that reason, was a big deal. But now 16 is gone and it's 20. We're in 2020 and the card is judgment. The vibration now is judgment. So it's kind of judgment within the setting of the High Priestess. So this is massive. This is massive. Now, astrologers, I believe, most astrologers, maybe not all, most astrologers have been talking about 2020 as being massive for years. I can't remember the exact conjunction. I'm not an astrologer anymore. Is it Pluto? It's an outer planet conjunction anyway.
Pluto, Saturn, it's Pluto, Jupiter, it's Jupiter, Saturn.
Yeah, so all that's been kicking off the past few weeks. And indeed, actually, I think there's some more of that action to go for later on in this year. But that's the astrological take on it. The numerological take on it is that this is the year of judgment. This is the year when all the things that we've been doing as a society for the last 20 years come home to roost. All the things that we've been believing and practicing and engaging with and buying and voting and everything else, it all comes home to roost in the 20. So numerologically, 2020 was always going to be enormous. And the ramifications of everything that's going on will change a lot of things. Now, there's lots of ways you can look at this. Lots of ways you can look at the card. But if anybody wants to really understand the times that we're going through, I would recommend a study of the judgment card, a study of what it means from every possible person's perspective that you can find, because that's the thing that's telling us where we are, I think.
Okay, my thoughts on judgment are usually positive because it's a revealing. The angel is awakening people. They're getting out of their graves. They're realizing what's above them, which is, for me, a good thing. Negative, I don't see so much negative stuff with judgment personally.
So I wouldn't necessarily see negative either, but what I would see is big. So this is my description of the card, if I had to be simplistic and put it in one word, is I would call the card massive. I would call the card enormous, because in order to, it is a positive thing to awaken. It is a positive thing. But if anybody's ever done it, they know it's not always an easy thing. So, and it's all right for us, by which I mean people who've been interested in personal development, spirituality, looking at things in a different way. It's all right for us if we've been on this path for years. A lot of people are not on this path. They don't really think that there's anything more to life than the car that they have or the house that they live in. And that's okay. I'm not judging them. I'm not judging them. But somebody's judging them. Something's judging them, because they now have to awaken to a different way of being.
Yeah, you're probably right. I didn't think about that yet.
I mean, so it is a good thing, but it is a big thing, and we mustn't forget, I think, that I know it's debatable, but as far as I'm concerned, humans do have free will, to an extent anyway. So it is the choice that people can make when the alarm clock goes off. They can choose to get up, or they can choose to go back to sleep again. And so the judgment comes to as the alarm clock, but we can roll over and go back to sleep again if we want to. And that's why I'm optimism tinged with a bit of apprehension, because not everybody will necessarily awaken from this.
So was this always the case in 1920, in 1820, 1720?
Well, yeah, if you look at your history, yeah, I wrote about this extensively in one of my books.
Yeah, which book?
It was a book called The Key to Time, which actually is now out of print. But I promise you, it was in there extensively, where I basically went through the entire history, and you could see where this kind of vibe was happening in 1920, 1820, 1720, 1620, etc., etc., etc. But it's double whammy now because it's 2020.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm just trying to figure it out for myself.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But it does. If you analyze, if you look at history, you can see that the vibe, the atmosphere of the times is influenced by, or reflected in, if you prefer, the card of that year. Mm-hmm. And it's very much visible when you start looking.
So 2020 is awakening to the issues of the High Priestess, but also double judgment time.
Absolutely, it is. And the interesting thing, if we can see the picture of judgment again, the really interesting thing, I think, is when it gets silly and kind of literal and obvious and ridiculous, but interesting. You look at the picture, what's the angel blowing? An angel is blowing a trumpet.
Yes. Okay.
Well, there's a whole movement in America. There's a whole movement of hundreds of thousands of people. I think it's hundreds of thousands of people, certainly tens of thousands of people, who believe that by metaphorically sounding the trumpet, that their favourite president will be re-elected in November.
Yes.
Crazy talk, but it's out there.
And he's also has to do with the trumpet. Very well.
So that's kind of silly. That's a kind of silly way, but yet there's something going on. There's something going on here. There's something deeper than it seems is going on.
Well, before long time ago, I always compared this card to the film Independence Day, where they're all sitting on the top of roofs and staring at these UFOs and awaiting that something beautiful is going to happen. Have you seen this film?
I'm aware of it, yes.
Yeah, so it's also like, help me out, so whatever is up there. But in fact, I guess we probably have to do it on our own.
Well, I mean, literal aliens or, inspiration from the universe, either would work. But the point is that it's a call to awaken to what is actually going on in our lives and in the world, in our lives and in the world. Mm-hmm. We all have to do it. So we can't. So it isn't a criticism, but I just can't believe that the idea that you leave your house, commute to work, to sit at a desk for 8 hours, to commute, to come home again. I can't believe that is what life was intended to be. Yet it is what so many people do, and bizarrely, so many people aspire to do. Judgment says, well, hang on a minute. Is this really what you want to be doing with your life?
Yes.
So it's an opportunity to awaken, but I wouldn't say that it's any more than an opportunity, because it is perfectly possible for people to roll over and go back to sleep.
Okay, which brings me to another card. I mean, you already made the connection between, where do I have them now? Sorry. Oh, now I have to switch back here. Sorry, my computer. So you made the connection between the justice and judgment. You can make the connection via numerology, because one is 11 in the weight tarot and the other is 20. Both come down to 2. If you add 1 and 1 and 2 and 0. So they are definitely connected via numerology. But we also have another card which is connected via numerology. And perhaps you can say something about that.
Yeah, I mean, just on the justice point for just like 20 seconds, it is obviously you've got the vexed question, the unanswered question of is justice 11 or is justice 8, and people have a long debate and argument about this, and I'm only mentioning justice in the sense that to try to understand judgment, I sometimes begin with trying to understand justice. So justice like helps us to understand judgment, because they both bring decisions. They both bring a kind of finality to things. It's just that judgment does it from above, whereas justice does it from below. Just to say that.
Yeah, of course.
But in terms of the Emperor, then, is that the card that you held up?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So the Emperor is another way to look at the year that we're in, because if you add the digits of 2020. 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 0, you get 4. So the Emperor kind of steps in to the play now. And although the play, the television program is meant to be about the feminine energy, and it's meant to be about the universe guiding us, suddenly we get this very strong masculine energy coming into things, this very strong, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going to be, I'm telling you, I'm giving you orders kind of vibe. And that is, of course, the situation which we are now all in. Suddenly everybody looks to a strong leader. Suddenly everybody complains if the leadership given is not very strong or is a bit vague. This is the time of the strong man, as it were. And most of the strong men in this situations are men, whether the strength is real or not. You know what I mean. So that's another thing of 2020. The masculine energy is getting a chance to step back into the play. There's good things about that, and there's not such good things about
that. Coming back to the problems of our time right now, which is not only all the stuff you said about politicians, strong people, whatever, but we also have this corona crisis right now. Would you say this is also somehow revealed in this numerology of the year?
Well, I think that the corona situation has brought a lot of people to, so in the corona situation, a lot of people have gone to judgment, and they've said, I don't mean as in making a judgment about it, I mean they've opened up to the fact that there's a higher force at work in their lives and they can't determine their lives as they wish to, and here's an opportunity to do something different. So they've used it as an awakening, or they're using it as an awakening. Some people are going to the Emperor energy and are saying, right, 4, the energy of 4, let's have borders, let's have restrictions, stay in your house, stay in your box, don't go out, make a box around you, social distance. A lot of people have gone to that vibration in order to cope with what's going on. A lot of people have gone to the Fool energy. Now, we haven't touched on that one yet. But if in 2020, 2020, we're seeing the number 2 of the High Priestess playing its part, we've also got to look at the energy of the zeros in the 2020 playing its part. Now, the 0 vibration, I mean, some people don't like the Fool card, taking it kind of literally as foolish behaviour or stupidity. Some people take it as a sign of freedom, as a sign of possibilities. And certainly some people are experiencing during this corona time, self-isolation, social distancing, etc., they're experiencing an opportunity to kind of look up at the sky a little bit, to literally look up from their ordinary life and just take stock and enjoy things a little bit more. The fool has not got much with him. He's not carrying a massive suitcase. He's travelling light. Well, everybody's having to travel light because, you know, you can't go anywhere or do anything or buy anything. So,
sorry, I was just, it's probably some toilet paper he's carrying.
Yes, indeed, very good. Yes, well, maybe. And but that's the point, because we're having to engage with all of these energies, and different people are choosing which one to kind of gravitate towards. Do they feel better if they embrace the energies of the Emperor or the Fool or the High Priestess or of Judgment?
Yeah, I mean,
but the fact that it's kind of come upon us, because I think that's the biggest thing for most people. The fact that there's kind of like, it came suddenly and there was no real discussion about it. It was just bang, this is it. And I think that's the bit that a lot of people have struggled with, and that is judgment. That is the judgment aspect of things, where the angel in the sky of the card basically says, stop everything, just stop, hold on, step back, you kind of think, what are you doing? And suddenly everybody in the picture, they've got no choice but to hear the call. So, and I don't know what the viewing figures are and the listening figures are for these government news conferences, when, you know, address from the Prime Minister, address from the President, all this business. I haven't personally been watching, but I bet the viewing figures are through the roof. Not necessarily so joyously, but because people are rushing to hear the pronouncement. Yeah,
that's what they're saying in the news, that people are listening much more to this right now in parliament discussions and whatever.
I mean, there's lots of ways this could go, you know, and it's not all unequivocally bad or unequivocally good. But the point of judgment, and kind of my top line take on this, is that the presence of judgment tells us that we haven't got a choice, even if we disagree with what's going on, even if we think it's a load of nonsense, it's a load of hysteria. It's an excuse to enact a police state. Even if we think that, under the auspices of judgment, we haven't got much of a chance to kind of do anything about that, because it's like, bang, here you are. Now, the current situation will pass, but in this year, we will still be in 2020. We will still be in the vibration of judgment. So, I do think this. I don't know what it will be, but I do think that the year 2020 will bring further surprises.
Yeah, I guess so too.
But the card is an opportunity to awaken. I liked your positive take on it initially. The card is an opportunity to awaken. So we have to take the opportunity to wise up and wake up now. And maybe our friends or our family won't, but individually we have to. Well, we don't have to, but individually we've got an opportunity to. Yeah. That's what the good of the judgment is. It's an opportunity to move to a better state of understanding within ourselves.
Yeah.
And there'll be further opportunities to do that, because we're only in April. This is only April. There'll be further opportunities to do that for the rest of this year.
Plus, you said we are in the vibration of the 2 all of this century, but we're also in the quality of the judgment, because it's 20 all the time, isn't it?
20. So we're in the vibration of judgment this year, but we're in the vibration of the High Priestess ongoing now.
So you wouldn't
for the rest of our lives.
So you wouldn't say we are all the time also in the 20 energy, like we would be in the 19th century or 18th century?
Well, yeah, I would. I was not going to perhaps go there, but yes, I would say that. I would say that this is the century of judgment. Yes, I would say that.
Yeah. We don't have to go into this. It's just for people who might listen that they.
Yeah. I would essentially say that this is the century of judgment, as in the 1900s was a century of the sun, and the 1800s were the century of the moon. Now you have to dig a little bit, but I promise you, I perhaps ought to re-release my book, but it's there if you look at it, that in each century, the energy of that numbered card steps forward into our world.
Yeah, it's not 18th century, but 18 as a century, isn't it? So just for me, yeah, it's quite obvious. Neptune was discovered. We had the Romanticism. We had identity issues, whatever. It's quite clear to me. Yeah. I think we discussed everything right now. I'm just checking. Nobody has answered questions.
Right.
Freudian mistake here. But I agree. I think this year we will still be in for many surprises, and it's going to be a difficult year. But perhaps we can have a look out on next year.
Well, true. Yes, absolutely. The world, which is things coming to their conclusion, things being wrapped up in a nice, positive way, completion, integration. Much more positive.
Exactly. So this is where we can all be heading. This is my, I'm quite old as well, my Goa party card. So we can all have a huge Goa party, hopefully in 21, without so many frontiers, and we can connect to people again. And yeah, I think we're done for today, Richard. This was so much input. I'm delighted that this worked so well. And
it's a lot we've covered a lot. It's a lot to kind of grasp in the mind. But judgment for me is all about, we're being offered some guidance, God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And we've got the opportunity to awaken to that guidance individually, together. And I hope that as many people as possible will take it. That's the positive thing from this. Awaken to the signs and the guidance that is being offered to us individually and together. Yes,
I hope so too, Richard. Yeah, I think my first talk with the tarot experts on Tarot e.V. worked really well. I'm very happy with this. I hope you enjoyed it as well, Richard.
I certainly did. Happy to see you. I hope it went okay for everybody. I hope everybody got something out of it. Happy to receive emails if people want to ask me questions.
Yeah, I will put, as I said, your homepage is already in the comments. I will put in some more info after the talk. The video is streamed still, and yeah, we see what happens with it and whether people will contact you.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
You will. So I'm going to stop the live stream now and say bye to everybody who has watched.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you later.